If anything, 2020 has been a very rough year for airlines. And within this year, we've seen some airlines fold as a result of the aviation demand downturn. One of the recent airlines that has ceased operations is Hong Kong-based Cathay Dragon, formerly better known as Dragonair. Before its closure during the fall of this year, it was part of the overall group of Cathay Pacific as a wholly owned subsidiary. While associated more with Cathay Pacific, it was a beloved brand of Hong Kong and once a main competitor to Cathay Pacific itself. In this next segment of the Closed series, we take a look at the history of the start of Dragonair and how it became an integral part of the Cathay Pacific Group. Hong Kong is often referred to as Asia's world city, and for many it has been a business link to mainland China. Though it's ripe as a business hub, for the most part Cathay Pacific reigned as the dominant local airline of Hong Kong. This would lead to the 1980s as Hong Kong was going through a transformation, with the agreements leading up to the territory's eventual transfer from being a British territory to become a part of mainland China. In a bid to offer a competing option within local airlines, a group of Hong Kong and Chinese investors led by Chow Kwang-piu will lead the formation of Dragonair in 1985. During the summer of that year, the airline launched its first flights in June to Kota Kinabalu. While Cathay Pacific was busy expanding in other parts of the world, Dragonair focused on the regional flights, with the focus especially towards China through the operation of charter flights. As it continued to grow from its sole operation using a Boeing 737 jet, Dragonair was the first Hong Kong-based airline to become a member of IATA. However, things were made rough by Cathay Pacific, which challenged its flight slots applications, thus hindering Dragonair's ability to expand its network. Dragonair initially wanted to go beyond the region and had ordered 2 McDonnell Douglas MD-11s. Yet the biggest nail to the expansion plans came with the Hong Kong government implementing a one route, one airline policy. Though it couldn't compete with Cathay Pacific's route network, Dragonair became a beloved brand of Hong Kong, featuring hot in-flight meals, and the in-flight service featured cabin crew speaking Cantonese, as the airline shifted its focus to handling flights to and from mainland China. That really meant there wasn't much competition when it came to air travel to and from Hong Kong, which Cathay Pacific dominated the high-demand and lucrative routes. This would eventually set up Cathay Pacific's involvement with Dragonair. In 1990, a group including Cathay Pacific and Swire Group would gain a 89% majority stake in Dragonair. As part of this deal, Cathay Pacific would manage the airline and would lease 2 Lockheed L-1011 aircraft for the airline. Cathay Pacific also opened up its reservation systems for Dragonair. As part of the continued focus on mainland China routes, Dragonair took over Cathay Pacific's operations of flights to both Beijing and Shanghai, as flights to secondary destinations in Asia including Pattaya, Phuket, and Kagoshima were launched. Along with that, Dragonair phased out its Boeing 737 jets with the shift to Airbus jets such as the Airbus A320 and A330 jets during the mid-1990s. As it grew its involvement in Dragonair, Cathay Pacific sold some shares of the airline to Chinese state-run China National Aviation Corporation Group, which just so happens to be the parent company of Beijing-based Air China. This really helped the network of Dragonair in mainland China, making up 14 out of the 20 destinations served by the airline. This did help the airline weather the storm of the Asian financial crisis in 1997, which a financial report in that time stated, quote, "The performance of Dragonair remains satisfactory as the China market, the backbone of the company's operation, has been affected to a smaller extent than other markets in the region." The focus on the mainland China travel market would continue to grow even further after the handover of Hong Kong to mainland China. Not only was there a political change in Hong Kong, there was also a change in the aviation scene as Dragonair operated the last flight out of Kai Tak Airport before the eventual transfer of operations to the new Hong Kong airport leading into the 2000s. Looking to diversify its business, it added cargo services using Boeing 747 freighters, and also for a time operated flights to Bangkok and Sydney. Dragonair continued to develop as Cathay Pacific was very much setting up the stage for a full integration into the Cathay Pacific brand. In 2006, Cathay Pacific took back the majority shares of the airline and made Dragonair a wholly owned subsidiary. With the lifting of the one route, one airline policy in Hong Kong during the early 2000s, Dragonair actually operated some routes together with Cathay Pacific. The integration would continue with the inclusion of Dragonair into Cathay Pacific's Marco Polo Club in 2007. While a part of Cathay Pacific, it maintained its branding until 2016, when it was given a red livery similar to Cathay Pacific's, which was then going through its own rebranding as well. More importantly, the name of Dragonair was dropped in favor of the new name, Cathay Dragon, marking the full integration of the airline into the mainline Cathay Pacific Group. This occurred as the Cathay Pacific Group was going through its own restructuring, which had eventually returned to profitability in the late 2010s. However, with the political situation in Hong Kong leading to the Hong Kong protests in 2019, followed by the COVID-19 pandemic of 2020, the Cathay Pacific Group then again fell into another turbulent period. This leads to the eventual announcement in the October of 2020 that along with the large job cuts of over 8,000 workers, Cathay Pacific would end the Cathay Dragon brand after 35 years of being part of the skies over Hong Kong. Over the course of its 35-year history, the emphasis on the China market cannot be understated. Prior to the restructuring move, of the over 50 routes operated by Cathay Dragon, half of those routes were going to mainland Chinese destination, taking advantage of Cathay Pacific's larger global reach using Hong Kong as a connecting point to travel to Greater China. Historically, the airline has operated a majority Airbus aircraft fleet, mostly the Airbus A320s and Airbus A330s. Actually, Cathay Dragon did have some aircraft orders specifically for 16 Airbus A321neos, which will now be shifted to Cathay Pacific. Along with the jets, Cathay Pacific also has plans to integrate the route network of Cathay Dragon into Cathay Pacific or its budget subsidiary Hong Kong Express, subject to government approvals. The history of Dragonair and eventually Cathay Dragon resembles what the city of Hong Kong has gone through within the last few decades. As the government and the political situation of Hong Kong has changed into being a part of mainland China, Dragonair also went through its own transformation as once an aspiring competitor to Cathay Pacific, to it being an integral part of the overall Cathay Pacific Group. With it continuing to be the long dominant carrier of the city of Hong Kong, Cathay Pacific will likely use and carry on the legacy of Dragonair as the city continues to be getting more closer to China politically. With a long 35 years of history, if you have any stories related to Dragonair or Cathay Dragon as a former crew member or passenger, definitely would love to hear it. In the meantime, I definitely hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Once again, this has been Flights in Asia, highlighting the news and updates from the aviation and travel scene in the Asia Pacific. Thanks again for watching and have a great day.